Thank you to all my channel members, including my fan appreciation level members and my contributor level members, for helping support the YouTube channel. Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my video of 5 authors that I'm recommending if you are experiencing burnout as a reader. Most of the readers on my channel are like fantasy, sci-fi, tie-in fiction nerds. They're reading, epic fantasy, they're reading space opera sci-fi, or they're reading Star Wars books or Star Trek books. So that's typically my readership that I'm talking about. And this type of book might work for someone else. It might work for you even if you've not read any of those genres. But I'm particularly suggesting these books with those types of readers in mind with this recommendation. But there's a key to this, which is not to take any of these authors that I'm going to talk about and read them all at once. I do not in any way think that you should binge read authors. In fact, I purposefully try to space out my reading, not only because I try to keep, from just only having Star Wars videos on the channel, but I also try to space out reading so that I will not get tired of a series, and actually, whenever I approach a new series, or a series going back to, it's refreshing. If I'm going to a new genre, I do a sci-fi book here, then I'll do a fantasy, then I'll do a thriller, then I'll do a historical book, then I'll go back to fantasy, I'll do a Star Wars. I mix it up. I don't just do a bunch of fantasy over and over. So what I'm recommending is whatever your reading schedule is, sprinkle in every once in a while one of these 5 authors, and maybe it'll help get you out of your burnout. So the first author I'm going to recommend is Frederick Bachmann. Frederick Bachmann is a writer of contemporary fiction. He's the only contemporary author on the list. He just writes books that are engaging, they are deep and meaningful, but they also are very easy to read. You can just sit and breeze through one of his books. Most of his books, like 400 pages. He gets through some deep, dark stuff sometimes. He even gets to some R-rated material in some of his books. But he is a tremendous author. I just find myself just enraptured in whatever his book is that I'm reading. And again, don't read too many at once. Don't just go and read his whole trilogy or a bunch of his standalones all at once. Read one and then come back to him a month or so later. And this will help keep your reading varied and help you avoid burnout. The next author I'm going to recommend is a fantasy author, actually. And so if you're like, I thought you were recommending stuff outside of fantasy. Well, this one is fantasy author. And so this is for the people who are like, yeah, but I really want to keep reading fantasy. Okay, well, at least I'll try to give you someone new, and that's Stephen Arrian. Stephen Arrian wrote the Bear and the Nightingale and the Falcon trilogy. He also wrote several other fantasy and science fiction type books. But this series is what Stephen would describe as historical fantasy. It has fantastical elements in it. Certainly, fantasy is very much a part of the book. But it really reads more as a historical fiction. It really reads like a historical fiction that has fantastical elements. And so you're getting a historical fiction which is different from traditional fantasy or science fiction, and he has this way of just writing stories that are just so engaging and are just so thoughtful and interesting and historical, while also epic and fun to read. And so anytime I pick up a new Stephen Arrian book, I'm very excited to read his works. And so he's one that always, helps me avoid burnout. My number 3 recommendation on this list, and these top 3 are the ones I've actually been doing this the most with. I've read Stephen Arrian and several of Frederick Bachmann's books, but these top 3 have been my most top, recommendations because I use them a lot and they work really well. One of them is Agatha Christie, aka the Queen of Mystery. Agatha Christie wrote, I think it's like 80 or 90 novels, and they're all mysteries, and I think they're all about 200 pages. They're really short books, and they're all kind of formulaic. Sometimes she changes the formula, but it's generally a formulaic story. And she is just a tremendous author in that she gets the formula right. And she's very engaging, and I just even in her weaker books, they still propel me to get back into reading because they're so different than everything else I'm reading. And there's kind of a classicness to her books where you feel like you're reading some good literature that's also time store fun. This is something that's really hard to replicate with a lot of authors. A lot of authors who try to write mysteries now, they either feel very pretentious or they feel way too much in the dime store category. And she has this way of kind of having a foot in both worlds. And one cool thing about Agatha Christie that I love, this fact, is that she is only outsold by two people: Shakespeare and God. Shakespeare sold more copies than her, and then, of course, the Bible has sold more copies than her. But literally, she's number three. She's number three, my lord. She's number three behind them, and she's the most best-selling woman author. And her books work for a reason. I recommend starting with Crooked House. I think it's an amazing book, and it's my favorite of hers. But really, just pick an Agatha Christie book, especially if it's a Poirot book or a Miss Marple, and you're probably gonna feel it's different enough that it'll jolt you back into your reading. But as with all these authors, do not binge read her books. I'm warning you, don't binge read. All right, my penultimate recommendation is the person I've done this the most with. I've read 20 of this author's books, and even when I don't love his books, they propel me into reading more. And that is John Grisham. John Grisham is one of the most consistent authors that I just know. I don't even look at what the book's about. I don't even look at the premise. I just know it's a John Grisham book. I'm going to generally have a good time. I think out of the 20 or 21 books of his I've read, I think I didn't like two of them. But everything else of his I've loved. So that just shows how solid an author he is. And, he has so many good starting points. He has a few series, like A Time to Kill, but The Firm, which has a sequel. But other than that, almost everything he writes is a standalone. So if you're in the middle of a big epic fantasy series and you're like, I need something to change it up, just pick a standalone John Grisham book. Boom, you got a thriller right there. It's a nice quick read. It looks like it's longer. Some of them, it's like 400 or 500 pages. It reads real fast, trust me. And so this will just jolt you back into your reading habits. So The Litigators and John Grisham. John Grisham, definitely recommend. This has been the most consistent one that works. My final recommendation is an author and a series which is going to be so off-putting for a second because of how huge the books are. You ready for this? The recommendation is Ken Follett. I haven't read many of his thrillers, but I have read his historical fictions, and he's a master historical fiction author. Now, you may be saying, hey, I see those books that are 1,000 pages with super small print. How on earth can that be the thing to get me back into reading? Well, Ken Follett has this strange ability to just enrapture you in a story no matter what the premise is, no matter what the content is. You will just feel so into it. And like some other authors I mentioned on the list, like Frederick Bachmann, he gets very R-rated. In fact, he gets more R-rated than Frederick Bachmann in times. Frederick Bachmann has a lot more language. Ken Follett deals a lot with more like sexual elements. But Ken Follett is able to write just perfectly engrossing stories. And you breeze through them. There's so many testimonials of his readers who are just like, look, normally it would take me weeks or months to read a 1,000-page epic, and I just read this book in, a week or days even. Me personally, usually takes me like a week or so to get a book this size. I did every book in the Kingsbridge series in 3 days. Each and every one, it only took me 3 days per book, because they're just that, engrossing and that awesome. And also, if you're an epic fantasy reader, like I recommended earlier, If you like epic fantasy, this reads like real life epic fantasy. No, there's no magic system in it, but you've got kings and you've got, lords and priests, and you've got the townspeople, and you've got, lords who are, abusing their power, and you have the townspeople, and there's one who has a vision for something, and it kind of reads like an epic fantasy despite not being an epic fantasy. So I think a lot of epic fantasy readers would actually enjoy the book because it'll feel similar, but it's still historical fiction. So these are 5 recommendations. And again, as I've said with literally all 5 of them, I don't want people to miss this. The key to avoiding burnout is varying your genre and varying your author. That is a key. I know that there's a lot of, there's temptation to just go and just read a single author's entire bibliography, to go binge read a series. I want to just go read the whole Wheel of Time series. I want to go read the whole Stormlight Archive. That's a temptation that I've had with a lot of series, because I'm like, I just want to read it and get it done, and I just want to read that series. If you want to read more, and you want to have regular reading, and you want to have fun while you're reading, the best way to manage that is to change the genres and to vary them regularly. On my TBR, I make sure that I don't have too many of a specific. Sometimes I have to have more Star Wars than anything else because of the channel needs, and I'm trying to get through it. But I still make sure I don't read. If I have 3 books for the month for Star Wars, I try to never read all 3 together. I try to read one and then read something else. Read a thriller. Read one, read a historical fiction. Read one, read a fantasy. That type of thing. I believe that if you take these authors and that mindset to your reading, I think that it will propel you forward. Let me know if you have authors that you recommend for this type of a list, so that other people who might be interested in other authors, let's say you've read all these authors, you're looking for others, leave comments in the comment section down below. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.